Well, welcome to Emerald Hill Skies. This has been a bit of an adventure, this first night full observing. Thanks to those who have been hanging around so patiently. Let me just quickly look in the comments here in case I'm missing something. There's where I said, got it, everything's now lit up. Papa Tech says safety check, move my chair into the pool area. Chopper can't see me now. We're your alibi. You guys are wild. All right, I'm going to check and make sure we've got. I'm going to check and make sure we've got audio here. Okay, we've got audio. Let me. Okay, let me get that out of the way. The next thing we have to do here, before we do anything else, is just quickly show you. We have to show you what the observatory looks like. So there it is. You can see the telescope peeping out the top of this roll-off roof observatory. This is a Pier-Tech Telestation 2, and I really like the height that we were able to get after we put this pier extender on. That's part of what took time. It took about a half an hour to put that pier extender on because I had to polar align all over again once that went on. And I didn't really think that I would have to start from scratch like that, but sure enough, I did. So let's go back to our main screen now. Let me get oriented here. And let's see if we can grab the, see if we can connect to the camera first of all. 2600. Okay, so the camera connected okay. Now let's see if we can connect to the focuser. Focuser connected okay. Now what we're going to do first, because I didn't get time to do this ahead of time, is we're going to autofocus the scope because we are at a different temperature. Up here in the upper right, maybe you can see the screen right here. Yeah. Our temperature, that's pretty fine print for you, I bet. But our temperature outside is 47.7, so that's pretty warm. Relative humidity is 61%. So that is extremely warm, and we're going to do an autofocus using NINA. This is Nighttime Imaging and Astronomy, NINA. And if you guys get a second, would you tell me if that audio is sounding okay? And I wanted to make sure we're in both channels. Rats, it looks like we're not. Looks like we're just in the left channel again. Rats, surely there's a way to fix that. Some of you guys that have had, some of you guys that have worked with OBS, help me understand. Let's see, that would be here under audio. Somewhere here for this right here. Oh, I see. I wonder if it's on this thing I need to adjust. Trying to find there. How about that? Did that fix it? No. Check 1, 2, 3. Test. Still just on. Am I still just on the left channel? Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, Simon says the sound is good in Australia, but I'm afraid I'm just on the left channel. Why is that? Mono is on there. Why would that be? Why would I just be in the left channel? If you guys, oh, Laura's hearing well. If you guys have stereo headset, can you tell me, somebody that's got a headset in, is it coming through the right speaker as well or only the left? That really annoyed me last time, that it was only coming through the left, and I felt like the audio is really bad. In the meantime, while we're sorting out this audio deal, you can see what's happening here in front of us. The scope you're just in one channel. Oh boy, that's a hassle. Thank you, Mike. Good to have you aboard, Mike. You too, Laura. You too, Simon. R. There should be a way, shouldn't there? I wonder if I go to advanced audio properties. Look at this. Let me think. Balance. Look at that. Wonder why that's not in the right as well. No, that didn't work. Mono. All right, let me try that. I hope that fixed it. Hopefully that put it in both channels now. So Laura and Mike, you guys seem to have the headphones on. If you wouldn't mind checking that again, I'm hoping you'll tell me good news in just a moment. Meanwhile, here in front of you, you see the screen for Nina. The scope is, unplug your mic and plug it back in, Donald says, but I don't think I need to do that if it's fixed now. So you guys take a listen, please. Dennis says, got it. Okay, that's good news. Thanks, Dennis. What you see happening in front of you here is Nina's autofocus routine. Laura says using Bose buds, can hear in right, but primarily in left. Boy, right now, my silly audio meter shows the right bouncing with left. Okay, Donald says it's in both now. Let's run with it. You can see what's happening here. The Nina, that's the Nighttime Imaging Astronomy program, is adjusting the motorized focuser about 20 steps or stops at a time across a wide swath of focusing possibilities. And every time it moves the motorized focuser across excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat. Every time it moves it across 20 steps, it snaps a picture. And as it's snapping that picture, it tries to read the half flux radius. It reads the luminance of the image of the stars in the picture. And it compares the luminance in one picture to the luminance in the next picture. And what it's trying to do is reduce the luminance to as small of a level as it can for this half flux radius reading. Now you can understand the science of this, because how would you define focus? Well, it would be pinpoint stars, right? Instead of large donut-shaped stars that are wide, fuzzy and out of focus. See, that makes them wider and makes more luminance in the half-flux radius reading. So it's going to try to reduce the half-flux radius, the radius to the lowest level that it can. And at that point, it's going to presume that that's the best focus. And all that's happening according to a subroutine in Nina that functions more or less automatically. It reads that and scans across all those positions, and it looks for the lowest reading. So while that's going on, let's talk about just a couple of other things. The telescope we're using is a RASA 11. It's an 11-inch Rowe-Ackermann-Schmidt astrograph. The RASA 11 is pretty famous because it has the camera out in front of the what's called the corrector plate, that glass corrector plate that's at the front of the scope, the mouth of the scope where the light enters. The red, the little red round accessory that you see there hooked onto the front of that glass plate, that's a ZWO ASI2600MC Pro one-shot color astro camera. It's an astronomy specific camera, and it's cooled automatically whether the outside temperature is cool or not. down to about 8 degrees below 0 centigrade. And that way you always get the very same readings in all of the pixels across the entire image. The glass that you see here in the left side, especially well, that glass is designed to kind of straighten out the light and make it go back toward the objective mirror, the primary mirror at the very back. And then the primary mirror reflects the light back up to this gathering point where this red camera is. And we've attached the camera to the scope with something from a company called Octopi-Astro. And that Octopi-Astro accessory helps us tune the angle of the camera as precisely as we can. And the RASA is famous for being a very high performance and high expectation telescope. So we don't have it tuned exactly right, but it's pretty close. So let's see here. I'm just looking at our focus here, and in the right image that you see here, you can see that we've attached a dew shield to the front of the scope, and that's just simply a round of tin that kind of seals off the dew from settling down on that glass corrector plate on the front of the RASA. Now you might be wondering, well, where do you look through the telescope? And what's interesting about this telescope is there is no place to look through the telescope with an eyepiece. In fact, I sold all my eyepieces to be able to buy the camera. There's no need for an eyepiece with a RASA because the RASA has no receptacle for an eyepiece. So that's the front of the scope. And then here is an outrigger equipment plate that's mounted on the top of the scope, and on it you see a couple of blue accessories. The one on top is it's a Pegasus Astro Power Box Micro, and that distributes power to the stuff on board the scope that needs power. And then right below that is a Pegasus USB controller, and that distributes all the data, collects all the data. Here in front is a ZWO ASI2600MC mono camera, and that camera is the one we use for the sky view that you'll see in a moment. So that camera floats on top of the scope and kind of rides it like you would ride a Bronco. Everything comes down then to the bottom of the scope where there's an AC power supply, and that power supply distributes out the 110 filtered. Then there's a Meanwell 12 volt power supply here that distributes 12 volt power to all of the accessories on the scope and to the scope itself and the camera, and basically everything else uses 12 volt. Here's a rig runner. It's a special iRig unit that filters that 12 volt power, and this is the little machine, the gizmo, that takes the data from the cameras and translates it into fiber optic and ships it into us where we are inside of the building, about 200 feet away from the observatory. Once again, that observatory is out there, like I say, about 200 feet from us. There's the door. The roof completely slides off the top of the observatory. It's called a roll-off roof design. I really like it a lot. Lets you see the night sky really well. And then the telescope, as you can see, is peeking out the top of the roof and peeking up into the sky. So that's kind of most of what we use. Let me look at the comments. Let's see. Looks like we're okay on the comments. Let me go back to the screen and let me just observe that this is not the normal focusing pattern that one would expect. The focus has gone berserk here. So I think I'm gonna stop it because there is something wrong and reverse it. I'm going to go back here to the camera. I think I'm going to turn it off and reconnect it and see if it connects. It did connect okay. I'm going to go back here to imaging and try to start that autofocus again, because it was completely berserk, wasn't it? That was not a good parabola. What we want to see in this autofocus routine is something that looks something like a sweeping valley of a curve. But our focuser did not function well, and that could be extremely unhandy. Oh, the mount, Jeff is pointing out. Let's go back to, where can I show a picture of the mount? I'm wondering, where do I even have a picture of the mount? That's terrible, isn't it? Not there, not there. Right here. We'll look here and we'll get a better picture of the mount later. Thanks, Jeff. This little black machine down here is what we call the mount, and that's what connects from the pier that the telescope sits on, which is supposed to be anchored really smoothly. It's the mount sits on top of that pier and connects the telescope and basically aims the telescope into the night sky. And it's the thing that does the pointing, kind of all the fancy work that points the telescope at different things. Man, this... So thanks, Jeff. You know, I didn't have a very good relationship with this mount for the first 6 months. And finally, I figured out you can't run any of this power through it. And that's why I did that equipment plate. Take a look at this focus routine. It has really gone berserk tonight. There's absolutely nothing happening here. So I think something is wrong with our setup, and I don't even know what that would be, but we're not getting any parabola at all. Scoot way out here. Look at this. It's like out of control. Oh, that's a little better. But still, that's weird, isn't it? Why don't we stop it where it is and go back to the live view through the actual camera. And so what we'll do is we'll call up the imaging program we use. It's called SharpCap. And let's see, do we have the... Yes, we have the sky view. So that's the view through the ASI178 mono. And that's the camera on that equipment plate right here. This is the 178 that rides on top of the scope. So it's not riding through the scope. It's basically just looking at the wide angle view of the sky. Simon, we should have been close to focus. Simon's saying that we needed to be close. Well, typically we are fairly close, but maybe since the temperature is at such a wide variation, maybe we were off. So let's go back here to let's grab this 2600 and there we are. So you can see we've actually got a fairly good focus as it is. Not bad at all. Those are pretty pinpoint stars. In fact, you know, we could probably operate like that and not really be bad. So let's do that. Let's operate like this for a minute because I think otherwise we'll be so disappointed. We got people that are kind of waiting around. So let's assume that's close enough right now. And let's go back to our planetarium software. And what we use for our planetarium software is something called Starry Night Pro Plus. And you can see our scope here. Let's go ahead and connect our scope, I hope. So we're going to say show the telescope control and connect to the scope. And it's trying to connect. It's looking promising. And it is tracking. Okay. So what we're going to do is go over here and let's put in the search for lists. And I was thinking tonight, because it's a special night, it's our first night for observing through the telescope. Let's sort for altitude. Let's use tonight's best. And this is calculated real time with what's up in the sky. Here are a couple of double stars. Here's an open cluster. Couple double stars, star with an exoplanet. Here's a spiral galaxy. So let's just go to one of these spiral galaxies. How about M67? Wonder if we could try. Oh, here's Bodes Nebula. Let's go to that. So we're going to say here, show the info, and we're going to bring it over here to the right. Kind of put it sort of out of the way a little bit. Then we're going to right-click on Bodes Nebula and say slew to Bodes Nebula. Now, while we do that, we'll show you the sky cam and also the scope cam. So you can actually look from the floor of the observatory, a little camera we have on the floor, and you're looking up at the telescope as it slews live. And slew is the word we often use for as it spins around in the sky. And it's pretty high. Not only, I would say that this black mount area that you see here is at the 78-inch mark. It's almost exactly at 78 inches up in the sky. So that's pretty fun. We've got it up now so we can see, I think we'll be able to see pretty well the horizon, but we'll find that out tonight. So it did settle, and you can see the part of the sky that we're viewing here. And yeah, that's awesome that you can see the Big Dipper and the security camera. And I wonder if you can make it out in that view of the through the sky cam. Let me get over there with you and look at it. Yeah, there's the sky cam. I'm looking at it with you. You can see the Big Dipper. It is right here. So you see the bowl of the Big Dipper and the handle right there near the dew shield. There goes what would that be, an airplane traveling fast enough for an airplane. You can also see lots of light pollution in the night as well. Okay, let's go back to our screen and get back to our live view. Now, what we want to do here is we want to say that we're going to go to look at Bodes Nebula. Bodes Nebula. And in a minute, we might say a little bit more about that. But let's back away here and let's do let's try to connect to the mount. And let's do a plate solve. And let's find out if our mount, by looking through, let me see, we got to get you back on the screen, don't we? Let's see if by looking through the telescope and comparing that to images on file, if it can synchronize. And sure enough, it can. This is our first image of the night. We were off about 1.4 degrees, which is really not bad for the first object. We're going to see a couple of, I think, a couple of objects in this one screen. So let's see. Let's go ahead and put the target in here. I'm going to go over here to Bodes Nebula, and it's M81. So let's put in M81, Messier 81. And let's use our sequencer to start an automatic and start live stacking. Now, live stacking is a process by which we take several, oh my goodness, Pier-Tech is photographing Bodes Nebula right now in Florida. Man, if we could just hook these up, we would get stereo images. Simon is asking, did you build a concrete pier, or is that a steel tube the mount is sitting on? Well, we did a concrete tube up about 4 inches above the floor of the observatory. Then we mounted a Pier-Tech height adjustable pier to that concrete pier, and it goes about 4 feet down in the ground. That Pier-Tech height adjustable mount can raise the whole thing up about, I don't know, 50 inches higher or so up in the sky. So what we'll do now, I guess we'll go down here and do a white balance for this part of the sky, and then we'll do a bit of an automatic stretch using this automatic stretch deal. Let's do a live balance, a white balance again. That's better. Now we'll bring up these blacks to the top of that crest or so, and then we'll bring our mids in, and hopefully that'll bring out a little bit more of Bodes Galaxy. Now you notice that we're seeing, looking back at Starry Night Pro here, we're seeing actually 2 galaxies. Let's center on this object, Bodes, and we're going to see now exactly where the scope is pointing, where those crosshairs are. Let me zoom in here for you. Wherever the crosshairs are, that's where the scope is pointing. So this little tiny crosshair in the middle, that's where the scope's pointing. And then this red rectangle is an approximate estimation of what our telescope should be seeing in its field of view. So you can see we're seeing here M82 as well as M81. We're getting 2 galaxies for the price of 1. And M82 is a little more viewed edge on, like if you held a Frisbee sideways. M81 is viewed a little more face on, not quite. So let's go back to our, and let's move in. This is beginning to be Bodes Nebula, and we'll just move our mids up now, and you can see how it's starting to collect information. We're at 20 seconds exposure and 100 gain, so it's just starting to collect that. But you know what the other object is M82, and it's looking good already. As you can see, M82 has a very unique look to it, doesn't it? Look at these colors already starting to show up. Let's look at that one more time in our Planetarium software. Now this is the Planetarium software. It's kind of like an encyclopedia of the night sky. And just looking here at the side, and I'm wondering, why didn't they put M82 right here beside? Maybe it's this needle galaxy. You think that's what it's called? Let's look at the info for that. Doesn't look like it, does it? We're going to have to go up here and look for M82 up here and bring up the info for it. And we'll just put those side by side. And it says M82 is a contrasting object. Let's go back to our live view so that you can see M82. They're separated by about 150,000 light years, but M82 has been disrupted by a globular cluster that got too close to it and reacted to it in a tidal wave of gravity. So it made it very irregular, and you could have already predicted that, couldn't you? This thing has gotten messed up by gravity. It says that M82 is very faint in visible light, but in infrared light, it's very bright. And we're actually, by God's grace, with this RASA 11, we're pulling it out pretty well. I'm going to boost up our mids here and see if we can brighten it up even more. And you can see we can brighten it up. Look how irregular it is. It's almost an object that you wouldn't even be able to tell what in the world is that. Now, I observed this back December 26, 2020, and basically saw it as, is it called the cigar galaxy? Is that a nickname? And here I talked about those fireball core objects were amazing. Let's do a new observation, and let's change our observing session here. We want to be in, let's see if we can get into, first full night of observing. Let's get back to the live view. Now what you're seeing here is the live view through our telescope here in the observatory. Now let's do a new observation of this. Boy, it's going to make me add that observation. Then let's go back to the live view. And let's say here, I'm going to pull this over and actually do the observation right beside the object. We could see a deformed galaxy with fireball colors in its core, bright yellows and oranges on the right with greens on the left. The arms didn't really look very spiral shaped, but rather more like a deformed disc, we'll say. We're viewing it edge on, so it's hard to tell what it would look like. But it's very interesting. So there's our observation of M82. Now let's go back and do an observation of M81. And you can see it picked up our observing session name, and it put it right there in the observing session. I'm gonna show that we're using the RASA 11, and then go back to our live observation. Now let's go find Bose Nebula, and we should be able to find that just by scrolling over here. Now we're seeing some spiral arm material. I don't know how well you can see that. Gary is asking if we can zoom in a bit. You know how when you buy a camera at Best Buy, you have something with optical zoom, and it takes you in as close as you can with optical zoom, and then you have something called digital zoom in your camera. And boy, if you go into digital zoom, it starts looking a little bit mosaic-y. Well, if we go any farther than this, it'll be looking a little bit mosaically, but let's try it. Well, I guess you're right. That really didn't actually degrade too much, did it? We're at beyond the optical characteristics of this camera, but actually it doesn't look bad, even though I thought it would. It doesn't look terrible, does it? So this is Bodes Nebula, or M81. You can see it's not quite face on. It's maybe at a 45-degree angle, but you can see the bright core. And again, I'm going to go back to 100%. So this is the end of our optical zoom. Anything we do beyond this is just relying on our software to start enlarging the pixels. So we'll call that digital zoom. And the reason is because the RASA has such a wide field of view. It's like 2.5 degrees wide, something like that. And because it's such a wide field of view, it doesn't have a very long focal length to zoom in very close on objects. It's giving you a wide view of a lot of the sky relatively close, instead of zeroing in on any one tiny object. The focal length of this telescope is something like, I forget, 640 millimeters, something like that. Has a very wide angle view. But I think you can see the bright core here, and you can see some of the dust and ashes here, these dust lanes. You can also see out in those arms, there are some maybe star-forming regions, but look at the way you can see some of the, other galaxies that are visible, or other stars at least, out there in the outlying area. So let's just save that exactly as seen, and let's say that M81 could be seen clearly at 45 degrees tilt or so. And let's close that observation. And I'm going to go back to 100%. I want to look for a second in our scope cam just to check things out. And let's see. Looks okay, doesn't it? Looking at this one wire we have coming down from the scope and making sure that hasn't gotten snagged or anything. Looks okay. This is my first time to use the scope in this configuration. Yes, Donald, thank you. It's 620 millimeters. So let's widen back out now so we can see both M81 and M82. That's a neat view of both of them, isn't it? They kind of look like two little tilting eyes there, don't they? That's at 60. Here I am clicking in. I should be using my zoom wheel. That's a great view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap a screenshot of these two objects. I like these screenshots because they zero in and show us, and we're going to call this save as. We're going to call it, let me make sure I get us here in the library, in our desktop sharp captures. I'm going to say M81-M82, and I'm going to say at 8 minutes, and it was 8 minutes, and it was at let's see, 26 frames, and we're on 2022-03-20. Okay. It's a pretty amazing deal there, huh? Let's go back to the live view, and something did happen to our scope. Look how it has stopped tracking. Let's go back over here, and we're going to come in here. Ah, look, the tracking is not able. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back to the 0 position, and now let's see if it travels back. And let's look at that. Let's look at that one cable. It looks like it's traveling okay, like it has slack. Looks okay, doesn't it? Okay, so that's back looking at the pole star again. And let's enable tracking one more time. Okay. So I don't know what happened there, but that'll be interesting to try to figure out why did tracking stop. So now we'll go back to our live screen. Let's go back to our Planetarium software. And let's sort again in our list where we were. And we were looking at tonight's best. And it's sorting it now by altitude. And wow, we have 22 on the live chat. That's really great. Thank you all for joining us. If you haven't said hello yet, feel free to go ahead and check in. Kind of let us know where you're watching from. That would be a lot of fun. Okay. Now we're going to sort them by altitude. Let's see. We've looked at Bodes Nebula. You know what I thought might be fun? Let's look at this Whirlpool Galaxy. How about that? Or this Eskimo Nebula. That's very small, isn't it? But let's go to it anyway. We'll slew to it, and we'll take you back to the scope view. And Eskimo Nebula, and this is NGC 2392. Some people call this the Clown Face Nebula. That's a nice view, isn't it, of the weights? You can see how these weights counterbalance the scope. It's pretty heavy. Laura, thanks for being on there from Southern California. Boy, when I put the telescope up on top of that mount tonight, after I'd added this pier extender here in the middle, I could feel the full weight of the scope. I was standing on a ladder and I thought, oh my goodness, what if I drop this telescope? And there was nobody there to help me. Obviously, I was by myself. So that's a pretty good view of those weights and that heavy telescope. Dennis, thank you for being there from Northern Colorado. Nice to have you here. Let's look at the sky again, just to keep connected to the sky. Jeff, thank you so much after your long day at the surgical suite. Checking in from Montana. Bozeman, I think you said. And now let's go back to the screen. Let's center on this Eskimo Nebula so we can see it in our Planetarium software. And I love the way you can see the crosshairs of the scope where the scope's pointing, and then you can see the rectangle of the field of view of the telescope. Boy, that clown face is going to be tiny, isn't it? Wow. I hope we can even see. Oh my goodness. Let's do a new plate solve here. And let's change our name to NGC 2392 up there. And let's also change it down here, NGC 2392, the Eskimo Nebula. You're going to have to tell me if you think this looks like an Eskimo Nebula. Okay, we did our correction with our fortunately we were able to solve plate solve. Let's do a deep sky image annotation. Right there is the Eskimo Nebula. You can see it right in the middle of the picture. Here are a couple of other stars that it's noting. I like it. I like it that it's pointing out those stars. It's pretty cool. But there's the Eskimo Nebula. That's what we want to see. So let's turn that plate solving off, or that deep sky image annotation off. And let's just go on and start some live stacking with our sequencer. And so you can see it basically changes our exposure and our gain and sets it up so that we can start seeing the object at its best. Over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see down below me is that live scope view, and then down below that is the sky cam. Up above me, right here, is that iOptron Sky Commander, iOptron Commander that helps you control your scope. And then just to the left of that, you can maybe make out the Pegasus power box, and it's telling us that the temperature out there is 46.9. Right there in the middle. Let's go ahead and zoom in now. Yes, that's about 100%. And let's bring our darks just a little bit darker in this part of the sky. It's actually not bad, is it? And let's go ahead and increase our mids a little bit. Not much. Now maybe you can see why they call this the Eskimo Nebula, because the theory is that this represents an Eskimo face inside of his furry hood. This is a planetary nebula. And Don, that's actually 250. Gary's on from Western New York. Good to have you, Gary. Laura, thanks for the encouragement. Checking in from Northern California, the Shasta Valley Observatory. Good to have you here, Shasta Valley. Donald has the same scope. Nice. So that's 164 right there. This planetary nebula, maybe you've looked at these planetary nebulae before. They are created because a star that's not quite big enough to become a supernova starts exploding off some of its outer material, like a supernova would when it exploded. As it sheds some of its outer material, some of its inner material kind of lights back up and begins radiating again as kind of like a white dwarf. So this star might have been, I don't know if it was maybe it was like a red giant before, and it shed a lot of its outside material and it kind of strew it off as it sort of like discarded it because the star no longer had enough power to generate the gravity enough to keep that material, and so it just ejected it. It was about to die and it ejected it. Well, then the white dwarf inside of it starts back up again. And when it does that, it irradiates all of the gases around. And you can see there are some green gases. I'm gonna zero in, even though it'll look pixelated, just so you can see some of that color. Those green gases, that might, for example, be oxygen. And it makes a nice little ring kind of around the white dwarf. And when original astronomers back in the, 1800s, let's say, when they saw this, it looked enough like a disk that they thought they were looking at a planet, like looking at Jupiter or Saturn, you see. But in reality, it was never actually a planet. It was this star that had ejected this material out. Donald saying the Owl Nebula looks good too and has galaxy in the view also. Larry Fraley, welcome from Phoenix. I bet the temperature is warm in Phoenix tonight. Larry, we're not quite as bad. We have 46 degrees here in Louisville tonight, 46.4 at the scope. So what we'll do is we'll save an image of this, and we're going to take the image very close up. And we're just going to call it NGC 2392. NGC 2392. And we're going to say that's 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And that was 14 frames on 2022-03-21. And that's already set. I wonder if we need to set this on the desktop and go back into SharpCap Captures. There we go. Okay. And then we'll also save the entire image, but boy, that little clown Eskimo Nebula, some people call it a clown face nebula. It's going to be so tiny in that full view. You can see how it might be mistaken for a planet, because if you were using some of those original telescopes, as they zeroed in on this, you can see why they might have thought it was a planet, because as they zeroed in, it just looks like a little tiny disk. Donald says the Owl Nebula is bigger. Okay, we ought to look at that. Mashed Mountain, good to have you in Western New York as well. Too windy to put your scope up tonight. Oh, you had to put it away. Papa Tech, how do you raise the scope once the roof is off? Well, one thing we do, Papa Tech, is we rotate the mount so that it is basically weights up like Pier West, let's say. And then we adjust the azimuth of the mount so that the telescope is parallel with the ground. So now the deck is the weights are parallel with the ground, and the OTA, the optical tube assembly, is parallel with the ground. And my goodness, then we have lots and lots of room to open and close the roll-off roof. You guys, in case you're wondering what he's asking, he's saying, man, how do you get that roll-off roof closed? This is a picture I took immediately before the live stream started tonight. And he's saying, how did you get the scope down? Well, we put the tube parallel with the ground and the weights up so that the weights are parallel. And another thing we have is a height adjustable pier. So we can use the little push button and actually lower the pier, 40 or 50 inches, courtesy of Pier-Tech. And we actually have, I think, checking in tonight, sooner or later, the designer of this observatory. This is a Pier-Tech Telestation 2 observatory. And he also designed the pier and manufactured both of them. He said he was going to check in tonight and just take a look at this. So let's hope he does. Before the night is over, you'll see him. If he checks in, his name will be Vito, that good Italian name. So let's stop the live stack then, and I guess maybe we just go up here to the sequencer and go back to the next target, and let's go back to our Planetarium software, and let's make a quick entry here. We could clearly make out the white dwarf, inside the shell of this planetary. The shell had a clear greenish tinge, and we could see a primitive Eskimo face if we strained. Okay, so there's a little quick observation of this object. Now, as we look at our other object, let's do a quick resort and look at what else we've got here tonight. That was the Eskimo Nebula. We've also got the Whirlpool Galaxy, the Black Eye Galaxy. We've got Markarian's Chain, which should really be fun. We've got several Messier objects, several open clusters, several elliptical galaxies. You know what would be fun? It would be fun to look at something really, really close to the horizon, wouldn't it? And that would let us be able to see whether our scope is going to be able to look at the horizon. And I'm thinking it might be fun to do something, let's say, I don't know what to try. Let's try something in the east, or maybe in the south. So I'm just gonna go here and look toward the east in the Planetarium software. Okay, so it's kind of revolving around, making its way back over to the east. And this is our Planetarium software. This is not a live view through the scope. But you do notice perhaps that, well, I don't have you on the screen, sorry. You do notice that we have photographed a photorealistic horizon image. So you're actually able to see the, this is the prayer center and atrium in this photorealistic horizon view. And I'm inside that prayer center and atrium. Maybe if we go to the sky cam, we'll be able to see that in a minute. Not quite yet. Let's go back to the screen and let's look, the moon. What is the moon at in terms of its height right now? It's at an altitude of, let's see, 13 degrees. So let's just go look at the moon real quick, because that'll tell us, can we look as low as 13 degrees? So let's go back here and say slew to the moon. And you know, the moon is kind of a sworn enemy of astronomers, because it's so bright, especially tonight. It's about 96%, I think, tonight. It's so bright that astronomers feel like it drowns everything out. But what we find here is actually with electronically-assisted astronomy, the kind of astronomy that we do, it really doesn't seem to bother us much. Another thing we do is we use a light pollution filter, and I think sometimes that might help us a little bit. Look at that scope. It's pointing pretty much at the wall. So we're going to find out, can this scope see at 13 degrees? So there you see the way it's trying to look is with a Pier West configuration. The weights are over here on the east, and it's basically looking over the top of the observatory wall. Oh my goodness. So look at this sky view, and you can see that bright moonlight. It's making a halo over the top of that prayer center and atrium building. Now, if you look carefully over here to the right of that building, there is one room with a light on, and that room is the room I'm in. Now, just for fun, so that you know this is live, I'm going to walk over to the light switch. So I'm going to leave here, and I'll walk over to the light switch. I'm going to turn off the lights. And that way, you'll see that sure enough, that light went off. I hope. Okay. So that is the room where we're observing. That's my office in the prayer center and atrium. So that's the sky cam. Now let's go back to the screen cam, and let's go to our instance of Sharp Cap that has, and it's going to be fairly bright here, isn't it? Let's set our exposure on 500 milliseconds. And let's set the gain on 100. Still too bright. Let's try 100 milliseconds. Let's try 50 milliseconds. Let's try 10 milliseconds. Now we're starting to see some detail on the terminator side. And the terminator is nothing to do with an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's this side over here where these craters are. And really, this is the best part of the moon that we could image tonight, because it's 96%, and we're able to see some craters here. I think we could actually go a little bit. Let's go 5 milliseconds. Yeah. Now we're starting to make out those craters, and this entire section here is it's going to be the best part of the image for us, because let me back off a little bit here so you can see a little bit more of the whole moon. Something like that. Look how you can start to see some of those rays from some of the bigger craters where material was cast out. Let's go down to maybe 2 milliseconds. Now, our purpose in going to the moon wasn't necessarily to image the moon, although it is interesting, isn't it? I'm just going to save a snapshot of this, and I think I'll also do a screenshot so we can get just this view right here that's in our screen right now, and that's handy. And we'll call this, appropriately enough, moon, and it's 2 milliseconds real time. There's no stacking here, of course. And it's on 2022-0321. Make sure I put us back in the right place. For some reason, that's not remembering the location. Okay, so that saved that snapshot of the moon. Let's see. Look at comments here for a second. Yes, we are using the Octopi-Astro adapter on this RASA 11. That holds the camera in front of the corrector plate, and it helps you align it correctly. Jeff, you're so kind to encourage about the cool tech in that shed. Donald says gain 0. I think you're right, Donald. We could have gone gain 0. Ray, so sorry you've got clouds there. Remind us where you are, Ray. Laura says this is stunning. Laura, we're going to have to send you some kind of, encouragement of some kind in the form of a payoff after it's over. You know what I would love to do sometime is learn the names of all these locations on the moon. Wouldn't that be fun? Let's go over to our Planetarium Software, and let's center on the moon, and then let's zero in. Now this is at 13 degrees. I just want to tell you, I am highly unlikely to ever look at something at just 13 degrees above the horizon. There's so much air that you're looking through at 13 degrees, and that's why we're getting a lot of this. You notice how we're getting kind of a sizzle? See how it's kind of sizzling a little bit. I don't know if you can see that in the YouTube stream, but where I'm looking at it live, that's because of all the atmosphere we're looking through here. And I would never normally look at something at 13 degrees, but we did this to figure out if our observatory can view things at 13 degrees. let's go back out to full width here for a second. And it'll be interesting, won't it, to figure out whether or not we can see all these stars, sorry, whether we can see all these stars here. Let's put this back at, since we've already caught an image of the moon. Well, we were going to, before I get too far, we're going to look at some of these features, just very quick. I mean, it's worth a very quick thing. Laura says, first time observing anything like this. Laura, we are so glad you're here. Wade says he just bought an octopi and was really hoping it works well. To the point, Wade, I don't think there is anything else that can compare. Only the Octopi-Astro interface gives you complete ability across the X and the Y and the Z axis. So you can control how far you are close to the primary mirror. You can also control your X and your Y axis so that you can work on your centering, so you get the back focus correct and also get rid of the tilt. And I think you'll really like the Octopi-Astro once you have it successfully tuned. The nights, and notice I'm using plural, the nights that you work on tuning it, you'll probably be tempted. If, you know, I don't think any of us should ever swear or cuss. But boy, if you were a cussing man, it takes a long time to tune these. But boy, once you get it, you'll love it. I'm about a third of the way through, and then I just said, okay, I'm going to observe for a while, you know. So I've got really a ways to go in tuning mine, but I think probably it was worth doing some observing first. And speaking of that, I think I'm going to go here and actually add a log entry for the moon tonight. I'm going to say, wow, so many cool features at 2 milliseconds and 100 gain. Gorgeous, even though it was low at 13 degrees altitude. Some sizzle in the atmosphere. Lots of air. Now, if we were to look at this later in the night when the moon's directly overhead, there wouldn't be nearly that much sizzle in the moon for sure. I wonder if we try something here. Let's use markers and outlines, and let's zoom in on the moon some here in our Planetarium software. And with markers and outlines, let's, boy, I don't want to check all of those, do I? Because it'll probably drive Starry Night Pro nuts, because it'll be a lot of information. So can we pick out there's Copernicus. Let's pick out the ones we want. Here's Ptolemaeus. What's this one? This is Plato, and this one is Aristoteles. It's a good view tonight of Eudoxus, and we can even see tonight Hercules, way over there by the Terminator, really well. Here is Theophilus. Now, you might be wondering what we're doing. We're just right-clicking on a feature that we wanted to see, and Starry Night Pro is smart enough to know what that feature is that we right-clicked on. Maurolycus. Look at some of these larger craters. This is Clavius. We can also click on smaller craters that just have lots of rays, like this is Kepler. Look at all the rays shooting out from Kepler. This is some kind of a Mar, isn't it? Grimaldi. And this is Schickard. So you could basically go all around the moon, and one at a time, there's Schiller. You could mark the features that you want to learn. And now what we want to do is kind of toggle back and forth. So kind of memorize what these features are, and let's see if we can find them on the real-time image. Gassendi. Okay, so let's look for Kepler, Copernicus, and Ptolemaeus. So this makes it kind of a triangle with a very, very wide, what is that? The base of the triangle? A very wide base. Kepler, Copernicus, Ptolemaeus. Let's go back over to the live view. And is this Kepler? I don't suppose by chance. No, our deep sky image annotation doesn't note the features on the moon. I wonder if we're seeing, I think I have this already flipped. Let's make sure I do. Remind me where that is. Here it is. Yeah, I've got it on flip horizontal, but in this case, look at the configuration of the RASA. It's over on its side. So what that has done is it's messed up our configuration because it's not weights down. It's over on its west, its pure west. So it's over on its pure west. So that means that, look at this crater with all those wide help me out here. And there's this black one down at the bottom. Now let's go back to our Planetarium software. I wonder, can we get these side by side? Let's see if we can get these somewhat side by side. And let's go over here and shrink this a little bit. And then okay, that's not bad, is it? Okay. Trying to look at these side by side. Well, those two look right up there, but look how this little crater here is perhaps that little crater there. And this Copernicus is here. So we need to flip it, don't we? Let's go back here and let's unflip it. Let's say none. And let's check it out. Now this is here. No, it's still not right, is it? Somebody help me out. Your real-time image is rotated about 30 degrees anti-counterclockwise, the Starry Night version. Greg, how did you figure that out so quickly? So we're going to go back to the horizontal flip and let's go over here to our Starry Night Pro version and let's just deal with it. So you think it's only about 30 degrees off. I wonder if we can quickly find something that allows us to rotate this screen a little bit. What about an altazimuth guide and options? No, nothing there. Well, let's just deal with it for a second. Greg just knew by looking at the images. So there's Copernicus. You think that's only 30 degrees? You might be right. You're thinking this is there, maybe. Is this Schickard? Is that Clavius? So you're thinking that's Plato. Let's brighten this up just a little bit. You're thinking, where are these two craters? Are they those two? Look at Plato, the small dark crater at about 8:30 o'clock. That? So you think that's Plato. I see. I see. Yes, you're right. So one of the things I'll do is I'll figure out how to rotate this eventually. Wonder how that would work. Nah, we won't worry about it. But anyway, it's a cool thing to be able to look at these features. So here's Plato. Here are Aristoteles and Eudoxus. And that must be Hercules. So this would be Theophilus. And that would be now I'm lost again. Is this Schickard, Schiller, or is that Grimaldi? That's Grimaldi, and these three are real bright. That's Tycho, you're saying. Tycho, Tycho, Tycho. Tycho. Oh, that's Tycho? Oh. So you're saying that's Tycho. And over here, that's Tycho. Isn't that cool that when we uncheck this, Tycho disappears? And you can search for features up here. This is Starry Night Pro. You can search for the feature in the moon you want to look for. So let me get rid of that. And just for a moment, let's just go crazy and see if there's everything. So those are all the features on the moon that we could learn. I just knew that would kind of just go ballistic, you know. It's too many features. So let's uncheck those, and that was very entertaining for me. I hope you were able to enjoy that too. Did we already do an observation of the moon? I wonder if we did. Let's go back out and just say a new observation of the moon. We did, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So let's get rid of this one that I just duplicated, because we've already got this one. It was fun to compare to the Starry Night Pro feature identification to the Starry Night Pro feature identification power, whatever. We should learn these someday. I've never been much of a lunar observer, but that was fun, wasn't it? Okay, so there you go. That's the moon. Let's do what I was going to do a while ago now. Let's switch to sequence of next target. And let's go back out to auto. Wow, that's just blinded, isn't it? By the moonlight. Man, we can't see anything there. we're not going to be able to make out stars, are we? Because they're all just flooded with light. That rascal moon. You know what? I think we're going to be better off just going to the sky view. Even in that, see, we're not able to see anything. That's the wrong horizon tonight to go look, isn't it? Uh-oh, Pier-Tech is fighting with armadillos. That's bad. Ray is in Arizona. Glad to see you have your observatory up and running. Only from left to side to me. That was Tycho. Ray's Sirius. Sinus Iridium is the C-shaped larger center. Tycho at 2 p.m. Looked like the counterweights were close to the end of the bar. You probably know this, but if you'll add more counterweight and bring them close to the axis, you'll get better guiding. Maybe, Wade, but we don't really focus too much on guiding because we're doing EAA, so we don't have to have like 5-minute images. With RASA, the longest image we ever take is 20 seconds, so guiding's not too big of a deal for us. Too bad you don't have a rotator on the RASA. You could line up the angle perfectly. You're right, Greg, but I'll learn how to do it in Starry Night Pro before it's over. Because it's minus 12 magnitude. No wonder it's spoiling the night sky for us. You guys know that in the sky, magnitude is measured exactly the opposite. The brightest objects are going down toward the negative scale. And tonight, Donald is saying the moon is at minus 12 tonight. That's incredibly bright. Okay, let's go to something more constructive. Let's go back to our Planetarium software, and let's get it reoriented so it's back in the right place. And I'll just have to feel around for that for a minute until I can see how it lines up. By the way, that we were just seeing, that was the moon. Sorry, I forgot to change that. Woe is me. Anyway, that looks about right. Maybe a little bit bigger. Try to get this just right. Get the screen configured a little better. And over to about right there. Okay, so let's go back to our list. Let's sort by altitude again. And double stars M94. M94 is spiral galaxy. Let's do M94. Let's travel to M94. So first let's center to it and see where it is in the sky. If it's in that, oh, we're good. Okay, so let's slew to M94. And you might be wondering, does the scope ever turn in circles and wrap up that one cable? By God's grace, no. The scope is controlled by the mount, that black mount that it's sitting on. This is a iOptron CEM70G, and it's smart enough to know where the cable is. So it goes around to one end, and then it'll go clear around the sky the other direction rather than wrapping the cable around that pier that you see there in the middle. And Greg, we can go to M51 next. Here we are at M94, though. So we're centered. You see the crosshairs there. Let's just zoom in real quick so we kind of get a look at what we should see. There's M94 right in the center. It looks like it's a face-on spiral galaxy. That's pretty fun. Let's go back over. Let's see. Let's go back over to the instance of sharp cap that has the, here we go. And let's go change up here. This is, we're going to put this on M94. And this time I'll remember to change the title to M94, a spiral galaxy. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's make this bigger here. Something like that. And let's make this bigger. That doesn't need to be that big. That'll make our image bigger for you. In fact, it doesn't need to be that big either. Something like that is big enough. And let's plate solve just so we can see how far off our mount is these days. This is our third object, so we should be getting fairly close. But we did mount a pier extender tonight on top of the mount. Greg has the CEM70EC. Oh yeah, now we're just off 14 hundredths of a degree, so this is getting much more palatable. 14 hundredths of a degree. Okay, it did plate solve. So now we're ready to start live stacking. That'll take care of starting all that up for us. Switches the exposure to 20 seconds and the gain to 100, and it starts the live stacking process. And M94 is a bright spiral galaxy visible with binoculars. Telescopically, it has a bright spherical core surrounded by a fainter oval halo. So we're not going to see, oh look, it says large amateur telescopes might begin to reveal a hint of spiral structure. Photographs reveal a tightly wrapped spiral surrounded by a ring of bright young stars. These may be the result of a collision which compressed gas in the galaxy and initiated a starburst. So maybe we might, let's hope we can begin to see a hint of the spiral structure. So that color balance doesn't look bad. Let's darken the sky a little bit. Maybe we ought to do a new color balance. There we go. Let's darken it to right there. And then let's zoom in now. Oh my goodness, I am so happy with this RASA. You can see that after 80 seconds, it's already detecting spiral structure, which our description here from Starry Night Pro just told us that we would need large amateur telescopes to begin to reveal a hint of it. And we can already see clearly spiral structure here. I am really happy with the way this telescope is delivering for us tonight. There's an arm. I'm going to use the digital zoom for a minute, just so you can see kind of better what I'm seeing. This spiral arm that's slinging material out. Here's another spiral arm starting to form here after 120 seconds. Now keep in mind, this is a night when it's 96% moonlit. So this is a commercial for the Celestron Rowe Ackerman Schmidt astrograph right here. This right now, what you're seeing, this is a commercial for the Rowe Ackerman Schmidt astrograph. After 120 seconds, it was already revealing spiral structure. I just can't say enough about this scope. It's so much fun. On a moonlit night, now if we were to hang here for 25 minutes or 2 hours the way astrophotographers do. I mean, astrophotographers might hang here for 6 hours, and they'd collect all this data and integrate it all together. But wow, there's no way that we have to do that with a RASA. We're already starting to see this spiral structure here. Love this. Okay, now when we do our log here, let's go back to where we were, and let's say, wow, let me start this again. Delete and add that again. Wow. Well, it did it again. You know, Starry Night Pro has this bug, and it sometimes there we go. Wow. After just 2 minutes, we could see spiral structure. At 4 minutes, we could start to see, quite a bit of detail in the spiral arms. Look at that. We're starting to see a little more detail. I'm going to back off to maybe right around there. I know that's small, but that's actually the end of our optical zoom. And now we're using digital zoom. And we're starting to barely see some of the brighter stars in those arms, including some of the stars being formed in the arms. Now, it's notable that we would be able to see this because notice that it assumes that you would have a photograph to reveal those spiral arms and see some of those bright young stars. That would normally just be in a photograph, but in a RASA you can get that after 5 minutes. Ray says, I haven't used it for EAA yet, but yes, it looks like it works well. Now, Ray, if I remember right, you have a RASA 8 and a RASA 11, but did I see you in a recent a photo that just crossed, like a screen grab that just crossed my desk? Do you also have a RASA 36 as well? Do you have all three? That's crazy. Greg's working on 25 hours on M51 with a mono version of this same camera, the 2600mm. Ray, maybe that was your RASA 11, or maybe you have a 14-inch Celestron Edge. Maybe that's what I saw. I just saw it from far off. Papa Tech, I hope you're able to corner the armadillo. The focal length of the RASA 11 is about 620-ish, something like that, 624 maybe. It's not a very tight focal length at all. Let's bring this back to 100% and let's save a scene. Wow, that's just a beautiful, I love this. And let's do a snapshot of just that part of the picture, which is M94 at 7 minutes and it was 23 frames on 2022-03-21. And once again, I have to tell it to go to desktop sharp cap. I'll have to figure out how to make that the default. Yep, 620. Thanks, Wade. Okay, we're going to stop live stacking now and go back to, let's do one more target and then we'll call it a night. I hate for people to have to stick around for more than 2 hours, but we did get a late start because it took a while to get the fiber set. These are all the objects that are considered to be tonight's best. So again, we've got M94. Oh, we're going to try to do M51. I'm not seeing it here, so let's just find it up here. M51 for me is at 61 degrees, plenty high. And let's center it. And also, would you rather see the sky or the scope? I think it's kind of fun to see the scope, isn't it? So let's salute to it and show you the scope. Greg's going to hit the sack. Greg, you're using an Explorer Scientific ED152 CF 121, a 12-15 millimeter focal length, but f8. You have a good night too, Greg. Thanks for being a part. Laura's got to hit the sack. 6 a.m. Zoom call. You are so kind. Thanks for joining us, Laura. A lot invested. Are you planning to do some outreach with all this technology to get kids excited? You know, this is our outreach, Papa Tech. We're going to do this in the form of these live streams. You know, I'm just really blessed to have this organization that thinks enough of me to let us build the observatory here on the 61-acre campus of Team Expansion. And I'm just really blessed because they believe in it as a way to connect with people. So I'm really thankful for that. The telescope and the accessories, I've by God's grace been able to put together the money for that, but the org has actually provided funding through special funds that we raised for the actual observatory part. So that's pretty amazing. I should give credit to Team Expansion and also credit to God for the way he's provided all this. So anyway, it looks like we've arrived. Let's go back to our live screen view here. And that's what we should be able to look at here. Not only M51, but several other objects in the sky here. There's a NGC 5198. Pretty fun rectangles. So let's go back over to a live view, and you can already see a hint of it there, can't you? I don't think we have to do a plate saw, but we're going to do it just one more time. It is Papa Tech. We are very grateful and very blessed. Let's see what we come up with in terms of the mount now. Boy, I love it. 2/100ths of a degree precision now. We are only off 2/100ths of a degree. And every time we do one of these plate solves, it inserts another model, and it inserts another reference point into the model. So the model becomes more and more accurate as the night goes on with each plate solve. So that's kind of fun. Let's go now to, and let's make sure we put here M51, and then let's go to the sequencer and say start imaging. And we'll also go down here and change this to M51 spiral galaxy in a tug of war with a neighbor, let's say. Something like that. Oh, wow. That's the first frame at 20 seconds. That's one frame of 20 seconds. Can that possibly be after just one frame? That's 2 frames of 40 seconds. You know, I am never going to do eyepiece astronomy because there is so much detail here after just 40 seconds. And not only that, but I can share it with you because of the way EAA, Electronically-assisted Astronomy, works. I can share this view with you as well. Donald says, yeah, there'll be 4 galaxies. And Ray says, yes, all glory to God. Bless you, Ray, for saying that. It's a CEM70G, Wade. So it's the iOptron CEM70G. So about the only thing that gains is we get a guider if we ever want to use a guide scope. It's built into the mount. Not a particularly amazing one, but nevertheless it's built in. We get power, although with my mount you can't use the power because it turns everything haywire. I take that back. We use 2 of the back power connections, like for the focuser. That's through the mount. We don't run our data through the mount at all because it won't work if you try to. So honestly, we're not getting very much good out of the CEM70G because I'm not doing guiding, but it's there in case we need it. I guess that's a good thing. Greg says, yes, M51 is bright, and Wade says, yes, it's because of the USB 3. We couldn't run it through the mount. It drove it crazy. Man, I am so excited about this image. Now, this is using the digital zoom, but even with the digital zoom, there's quite a bit of detail. Look at all those little stars that you see in those arms, like star-forming regions that are being birthed. You can clearly see the neighbor. Now, you guys know that we used it a while ago, this deep sky image annotation. It lets us see anything else that's in the frame. So here's NGC 5198, for instance. And here's IC 4263. I think that one is a wisp right now. NGC 5169, NGC 5173, IC 4282. So the best view for sure is M51 with NGC 5195. So that is the name of this neighboring galaxy. And because they've interacted, it has caused M51 to go a bit berserk. And you can see how this arm has almost begun combining with that arm, with an arm of its neighbor. What was that neighbor again? What's that called? 5195. 5195. So we're going to come back here and do, after just 20 seconds, one frame, we could make out the spiral structure. After 4 minutes, we could see the arm being drawn out by the tidal force of, was it 5195 NGC? Was that right? I forgotten that already. 5195. Yeah, 5195. All this with 95% moonlight. I don't see how that's working, guys. I have no idea how that's working. Look at the color difference you can see between NGC 5195. Yes, Greg, that's a fairly new feature. Greg says he's had no trouble with USB 2 hub. I've heard the same thing. He runs all power and data through the mount. Yeah, wonderful not to have to worry about cable snags, right? We are using a filter array. It's the Celestron. It's the Celestron light pollution filter that's designed for the RASA 11. Perhaps you have it as well. I gotta say, it's an expensive filter, but I really do think that it's helpful. As you can see in an image like this, I think it really is helpful. I kind of imagine, and maybe again it's just, perhaps it's my imagination, but I kind of imagine it's helping us with the moonlight too. I don't know if that's true, but for sure it seems to help us with the light pollution because, you know, this part of the sky would normally have a lot of light pollution in it, as you can see. Not only are we getting light pollution from the moon over here, but we're getting light pollution from the city of Louisville, city of about 1 million people over here. How in the world that filter gets rid of at least all of this city light pollution, I have no idea. And even with this moonlight pollution, we're still getting this view live. Now this is, again, this is not the planetarium program. This is the live view at 6 minutes. Donald says he has that filter. So Donald, you know what it costs then. Donald is saying if we did 60-second exposures, we'd see more detail. Oh, Ray uses an L enhance, and I've heard that does really well. Yeah, 60-second images. I think for us tonight, this is probably good because I know we're coming up on our 2-hour, kind of the limit of live streaming that I usually do, just for your guys' sake, so you're not trapped here. We've had a good 16 to 22 people here in the live stream all night long, and we don't want to wear out our welcome. I think we're going to end with M51, but I tell you what, I will never forget this first night. To me, it is performing super well, and I'm really, really thrilled at the observatory, as well as the way the mount is working up on top of that pier. We are at 78 inches high, and to give you an idea of what that's like, let's just look one more time here. This wall is exactly 78 inches. So the mount, the deck and the RA intersect at 78 inches in this observatory. So even at 78 inches high, we're still getting really good plate solving, really good performance of this mount. I'm pleased with the pier that's holding steady, and really love this kind of shakedown that we've been able to do for this first night, ending here with M51. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We are so grateful that you were here for this kind of christening of the first full live stream with the Emerald Hill Skies. Once again, I want to thank, if I can just briefly, I want to thank the Lord for making these objects so beautiful up in the nighttime sky. And thank you for watching. Whether or not you're watching this live or the recorded version, if you enjoy this kind of content, I really wish, I would love to invite you to click thumbs up and to subscribe by clicking that subscribe word, the link, and the bell so that you're notified when we release content like this. That helps get the channel into the headlights of other people. It helps get it into their windshield, their heads-up display, so to speak, and it doesn't cost you anything at all. So it's free for you, but it does help the channel. And for us, it's really a great favor if you wouldn't mind subscribing. So that's it for tonight. Even on a moonlit night, we've had lots of fun. And I just want to say one more time how thankful we are for you. Tonight, a couple of dozen of you watching live, and for all of you who will watch the recorded version, we are so grateful that you're willing to share this hobby with us. And it's kind of like you're walking this journey with us as we learn about the skies overhead here at Emerald Hill, the Emerald Hill skies. So God bless. Have a great evening, and we'll look forward